Alrighty, guys, we have the June 2011 CSR for the plaintiff, Ms. Palmer. Witness, a court for the defense, Ms. Barker. 150 words per minute. Starting in some colloquy and then direct by defense, Ms. Barker.
Ready? Begin. Counsel, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Back on the record, in this matter, all parties are present, including all counsel. The petitioner may call his next witness, please.
Your Honor, we call Brad Martin.
Let's proceed.
Before we get started on that, if I may address the court on a scheduling matter.
Certainly.
Counsel had said their client would be their last witness, and I just wanted to make sure so I could have my witnesses ready.
We are calling our client, Mr. Martin, but we still have the expert who isn't available until next week. We didn't want to lose the rest of the day today, so we are putting on our client out of order.
Thank you. I just wanted the clarification.
Counsel can call their witnesses in any order they wish. I'm not trying to tell you how to put your case on, but I certainly don't want to lose half a day just because one witness isn't available. We might as well use the time.
I have no problem. I just want to know when I should have someone ready for my case.
We won't be resting until next week.
Okay, let's proceed.
Good morning, Mr. Martin.
Good morning.
Let's start by telling us a little bit about your background.
I am originally from Carson, California. I was raised by two parents, my mother and father. I have two sisters.
Mr. Martin, I need you to move a little bit closer to the microphone, please.
Okay.
Does your family still live in that area?
Yes, they do.
And can you tell us what it was like growing up there in Carson?
I mean, it was like pretty much all the other neighborhoods. It was gang infested. I dropped out of school in about the 8th or 9th grade, started hanging out with gang members. I was just doing the things that other young teenagers were doing at that time.
Mr. Martin, let's just cut to the chase here. It is documented that you joined a criminal street gang when you were younger. Is that correct?
I suppose you can say I joined it. There wasn't an initiation or anything. That's the neighborhood I started claiming. That's correct.
Why did you join your gang?
Because it was something to do as a teenager. I was young and I wanted to hang around.
And did you pick up any criminal charges during that time?
Never for the gang, but I did pick up some criminal charges.
Tell us about that, please.
In '85, I picked up a possession for sale, which was marijuana.
Were there any other criminal charges?
Yeah, I picked up a case in '91 for robbery.
Did you do prison time for that?
Yes, I did.
How many years?
I did 5 years, 8 months.
Are you still today involved with gangs?
Definitely not.
Explain that, please.
Basically, I fell in love with something that never loved me back. I mean, I banged for many years, but I just finally grew out of it.
You were arrested on August 5, 1998 for this robbery. Is that right?
Correct.
And were you told what you were arrested for?
They said a robbery in Orange County.
What was your reaction to that?
I couldn't believe that because I had never been to Orange County except for Disneyland.
Okay, did you think there was another reason that you were arrested?
Yeah, I thought that they were trying to arrest me on a violation for living in Las Vegas.
How long had you been living in Las Vegas?
I got out July 15 of '97, and I moved to Vegas probably a month or two after I got out.
So you were living there about a year?
Well, actually a little longer than a year.
So you were still living in Las Vegas at the time of the robbery?
Correct.
Can you take me to that day and tell me what you were doing on March 28, 1998?
Objection. Calls for a narrative.
Sustained. Ask your next question.
Were you in Orange County on the day of the crime you were convicted of?
No, I picked my son up from my parents' house. We were driving home and
Objection. Non-responsive after the word no.
Overruled. You have answered the question.
Approximately what time did you arrive to your parents' address?
I got there around 3 or 4 in the morning.
Then what happened, Mr. Martin?
My son was ready to go. I said hello to my parents, and then we left to travel back to Vegas.
So you drove back to Las Vegas. Approximately what time did you arrive there?
We probably got there between 7 and 8 o'clock.
Mr. Martin, what did you do that afternoon?
I went to sleep as soon as we got back. I was exhausted. I went immediately to bed.
Now, when you were prosecuted for this robbery, were there other defendants involved?
Yes,
Who else was tried with you?
Bobby Johnson.
Now, was Bobby Johnson someone you knew before you were arrested?
I met him a couple times. We weren't really friends or anything like that. We didn't associate.
During the time of the trial, did you talk to him about the charges?
Definitely. Every day we went to court.
And did he tell you he was involved with the robbery?
No, I asked him several times if he was involved, and he always said he wasn't. I thought he was accused by mistake, just like me.
Was there a later time where you came to believe that he was involved?
We went to trial and got found guilty. After we went to prison, I discovered he was definitely, positively involved.
How did you find that out?
Calls for hearsay, Your Honor.
Overruled.
You can answer the question.
Another inmate told me that was the word in the neighborhood.
Excuse me. That is hearsay. The prior objection is sustained.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Next question, please.
What did you do to follow up on that information?
I sent a note with somebody who was housed with Johnson. I told him I found out not only did he have something to do with it, but he set the robbery up.
Okay, did you find out anyone else was involved in the crime?
I also found out about Alex Walker.
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay if offered for the truth.
Sustained.
At some later date, did you find out Alex Walker was involved in this case?
Yes,
Did you follow up on that information?
I definitely did.
Objection, hearsay. That calls for hearsay if offered for the truth.
Pardon me?
If it is offered for the truth, Your Honor, it's hearsay.
It is just being offered that he had the information, Your Honor.
I don't think it is very specific, Miss Palmer. He had some information. It is based on hearsay. The trier of fact doesn't know what the hearsay is. It is overruled.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Let's proceed.
Now, let me back up a little bit. Did you know Alex Walker personally?
No, never met him before a day in my life.
At some point, did you discover yet another person was involved in this crime of robbery?
Yeah, that was many, many years later, though.
Did you follow up on that information?
I definitely did. I wanted to set up a meeting with him so I could discuss it with him and find out more about the robbery case.
Okay.
I found out the other person was also doing time at the same prison.
Objection, hearsay.
All right, sustained. This is really non-responsive at this point in time. Let's have another question, please.
Let me back you up a little bit. When you were incarcerated, you learned that there was a third party involved in this robbery.
Yes,
Who did you learn that from?
another inmate on my yard.
You subsequently had a meeting with that additional party.
I definitely did.
Okay, who was that?
Brian Scott.
At that point, did you discover that he was involved in this robbery?
I did.
Objection calls for hearsay.
Sustained.
What did you do with the information you gathered on this case?
I telephoned my parents and told them about it.
Since the time you were locked up, how did you attempt to get help with your case?
I mean, I have approached so many different people. I even wrote the district attorney to tell him there was more evidence on my case and that I was innocent. I wrote the judge to tell him there was a big mistake and I should not be in prison anymore.
I need to interject something here. I personally don't remember receiving any letters from the defendant.
I sent them, Your Honor.
Hang on, Mr. Martin. I am just saying if there are letters, they will be in the file for review.
That's fine, Your Honor. Thank you.
Counsel, next question.
Mr. Martin, did you rob the Chase Bank?
No, definitely not.
Did you have any involvement in the robbery of the Chase Bank?
I did not.
Were you involved in planning the robbery?
No.
Were you involved in assisting anyone who was involved in that robbery?
No.
Your Honor, may I just have a moment?
Yes.
Thank you. No more questions at this time.
Ms. Palmer, your turn. Please proceed.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, ma'am.
How many felony convictions do you have?
I think 4 or 5.
You mentioned you have the conviction for possessing marijuana.
Right.
Do you remember another conviction for drug possession?
It is possible, yes.
There was also a case where you were at least arrested for attempted murder, robbery, and assault with a deadly weapon. Do you remember that one?
Yes, I do.
On that one, you actually pled guilty, right?
No, I didn't plead guilty to it. I got found guilty.
I am sorry, you are right. You were found guilty of a second-degree robbery and shooting at a car. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You were also found guilty of assault with a deadly weapon. Is that correct?
Yes.
And in that case, you were innocent too, correct?
What do you mean?
You testified you are innocent of the charges that sent you to prison on this case, correct?
Yes, I did not rob that bank.
Just like you were innocent of the charges in the previous case, correct?
No, I was guilty of the other one, but not this one.
Do you remember talking to Investigator Michaels?
I sure do.
Do you remember telling Investigator Michaels that you were innocent of that case?
I told Michaels I was innocent of the offenses that they charged me with, but not the crime itself.
Didn't you say that you took a fall for your homeboys in that case?
That's exactly right.
And that you had nothing to do with it?
No.
Is that the conviction which sent you to Jamestown Prison?
That's right.
Is that the occasion where you become acquainted with your friend, Mr. Johnson?
That's right.
That's who you say is responsible for this robbery we are talking about today, right?
It was the 3 of them. I wasn't involved.
You say you were falsely accused of this robbery, right?
Yes, the witnesses are mistaken.
How long were you in prison with Mr. Johnson?
Approximately 2 months.
You knew he was a fellow gang member, didn't you?
Definitely.
And he was also from the same gang you claimed.
Yes.
And as long as we are talking about your gang affiliation, you say you weren't initiated, correct?
Right.
Did you offer that up like you weren't really a gang member?
Not necessarily. I am saying I was a gang member.
Well, when you say you weren't initiated, do you mean you weren't jumped in?
Right.
How did you become a gang member?
Well, I just lived in the neighborhood. There's a lot of people in my neighborhood who claimed the neighborhood, but they're not really full-fledged gang members, you know.
Full-fledged gang members do things like claiming the gang. Is that correct?
Definitely.
They go out and commit crimes. Is that correct?
Sure.
They also get tattoos, correct?
Yes.
You have tattoos, don't you?
Yes.
What kind of tattoos do you have?
I have plenty of tattoos.
Well, let's discuss your tattoos.
Okay, I have my mother's name and my father's name. I have pictures of my children.
I object to the relevance of my client's tattoos.
Overruled.
When did you get the images of your family on your body?
I got them while I was in prison on this robbery conviction.
Let's focus specifically on your gang tattoos.
Okay.
Let's talk about the first gang tattoo that you received. When did that happen?
The first one I got was probably about 1984.
Where do you have that and what is it?
Objection, compound.
All right, let's just have the answer and move forward.
You can answer my question.
I have the name of the gang on my right here on my stomach.
Probably pretty big letters, correct?
It is about this size.
How tall are the letters on your stomach?
It is about 5 inches.
I renew my objection. He has admitted he is a gang member. He admitted he has tattoos. I am not really seeing the relevance of the size of these tattoos.
I think I know where Miss Palmer is going with this. Overruled.
Mr. Martin, how many tattoos do you have that are related to your gang?
I already said I have a lot of tattoos.
How many do you have, sir? Do you have more than 10?
Yes.
According to your prison record, it states you have 28. Does that sound about right?
Probably pretty close.
When you have tattoos like that, it means you are pretty down for the gang in order to mark yourself up for life. Is that correct?
Yes.
You testified you are not a gang member now, but you previously were. Is that correct?
Yes.
Reset on 18. Let's talk about Jamestown. You met with Mr. Johnson in prison at least a few times, correct?
Yes.
You found out he was from your neighborhood, correct?
Yes.
So at the time of the robbery we are discussing today, you obviously knew Mr. Johnson.
Correct.
You knew Mr. Johnson from the neighborhood as well, didn't you?
No.
Did Mr. Johnson ever come visit you in the neighborhood?
Sometimes.
Now, you indicated that at the time of this robbery, you were living in Las Vegas,
That's correct.
and that was a violation of your parole, correct?
That's correct.
That's something that you never told your parole agent, correct?
Yes.
Where did you tell your parole agent you lived?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled.
What city did you tell your parole agent you were living in when you were released from prison?
Carson.
Were you lying to your parole agent?
Yes, I was.
How many times did you lie?
Just the first time he asked me. He never asked me my address again.
Now, even though you were living in Las Vegas, you came back to the neighborhood, didn't you?
Yes.
To see your friends and hang out, correct?
Yeah, but not too often.
You testified that while you were in prison, you discovered the real person who committed this robbery. Is that correct?
Yes, I uncovered the new evidence.
In Jamestown prison, you arranged a meeting to talk to the person you believe really committed the robbery.
Yes, I did.
Did you two discuss the statute of limitations for the crime of robbery?
I don't believe so.
Did the statute of limitations ever mean anything to you in relation to this robbery?
To be truthful, I hadn't even thought about the statute of limitations right then.
When did you think about it?
People started talking about it.
When were people discussing this with you?
That was probably in 2008.
So at some point you believed that people could come forward and say that they were involved in the crime and not get in trouble for it.
That's my understanding.
You wanted someone to do that, right?
I wanted people to tell the truth.